The first step with all of transurfing, but in particularly when it comes to pendulums, is to wake up from the subconscious dream. Use all moments, and especially negative ones, as a trigger to wake up, see yourself and reality, and ask, what am I doing right now? The statement that I like to use is, I see myself, I see reality. Don't just say it, but be conscious. Truly see yourself and the environment that you're in. Trying to battle with a pendulum is worse than pointless. As was explained previously, when you battle with a pendulum, you just end up supplying it with energy. The first and most important condition for successfully defeating a pendulum is to refuse to get into conflict with it. Firstly, the more actively you try to fight off pendulums, the more you're just providing them with energy, making them cling to you even more. In addition, you have no right to judge or change anything. Instead, accept it as if you're viewing paintings in a gallery. Some may not suit your taste, but you wouldn't demand they be removed, you would just walk into the next room and exhibit. Recognize the pendulum's right to exist and simply walk away free from its influence. Avoid fighting, judging, or losing control, as this only feeds the pendulum. Treat it as a necessary evil and part of life and move on without opposition. Any opposition only supplies it with energy. Now, before you can fully understand what it means to choose, you have to know how to decline. Most people have a vague idea of what they do want, but know exactly what they don't want. In an effort to get rid of the things or events that they don't want in their life, people act in a manner that has the opposite effect. To decline something, you have to first accept its existence. The word accept in this context does not mean to embrace something and let it into your personal space. It means simply to recognize its right to existence and then pass by indifferently. Just notice it, let it pass, and move on. This approach is far more effective than letting it in, getting attached, and then trying to resist it. If you want to eradicate something from your life, all you have to do is stop thinking about it, pass it by with indifference, and it will disappear. When you think about the things you do not want, you attract them further into your life. Imagine a person who detests tomatoes. Not me, of course. I love tomatoes. I could eat them every single day. I could put them on everything. I love them, so succulent, so juicy, a little bit of salt. Mwah. But imagine this hypothetical person who doesn't like tomatoes. Weird, right? But rather than simply paying tomatoes no attention, it irritates the person that tomatoes even exist at all. On a material level, they get annoyed every time they see a tomato and openly express their disgust. On an energetic level, the person may as well be hungrily pouncing on tomatoes, stuffing their mouth, chomping loudly, screaming about how much they hate tomatoes, stuffing their pockets, only to be sick once again and complain about how much they cannot stomach tomatoes. What the person does not realize is that they could simply delete tomatoes from their experience. And therefore, you get what you love to hate. It does not matter if you love or hate something. If your thoughts are lashed onto the object of your emotions, your thought energy will be attuned to a certain frequency, and you'll end up caught by a pendulum and transferred to a corresponding lifeline where the object of your fixation is present in abundance. If you want to eradicate something from your life, all you have to do is stop thinking about it, pass it by with indifference, and it will disappear. To eliminate something from your life, ignore it, do not avoid it. There is a difference. When you avoid something, it means you have let it into your personal space, but are now actively trying to get rid of it. To ignore something means not to react to it, and consequently not to experience its presence in your space. The pendulum cannot hook onto you if you are empty. Battling a pendulum is futile, as it only supplies it with energy. The key to defeating a pendulum is to refuse to engage in conflict with it. Imagine that you're a radio. If your day-to-day life is like waking up every single day listening to a radio program that you hate, all you have to do is tune in to a different frequency. If you think you can protect yourself from unwanted pendulums by putting up boundaries between yourself and the world, this is an illusion. Putting on protective armor and avoiding the world requires a huge amount of energy to support this kind of protective field. Isolating yourself from the world creates constant tension. Your defensive energy ends up vibrating at the same frequency as the pendulum you're trying to resist, which is exactly what it wants. It doesn't matter if you give your energy willingly or unwillingly, the pendulum still feeds on it. True protection from a pendulum lies in ignoring it. If you remain empty and indifferent, pendulum has nothing to hook onto. Its energy will simply pass by and dissipate without affecting you. When you refuse to react, the pendulum cannot upset or control you. There's this beautiful quote from A Course in Miracles that I absolutely love and wanted to share, and makes perfect sense for this lesson. In my defenselessness, my safety lies. The pendulum's principal objective is to attract as many adherents as possible and reap their energy. If you ignore the pendulum, it will leave you alone and switch its focus to others who can be drawn into the game and attuned to the necessary resonant frequency. However, we often come across situations where it's not that easy to ignore the pendulum. For example, if your boss demands something from you, an outright refusal or open defense of yourself would entail a loss of energy because both approaches amount to fighting the pendulum. You can, however, act as if you're willing to play the pendulum's game as long as you remain aware of the fact that you're just pretending. Pretending to play the pendulum's game mirrors techniques used in martial arts like Aikido. Instead of resisting an attack, the defender moves with the attacker's momentum, redirecting their energy until it dissipates harmlessly. The key is to avoid blocking or opposing the force directly. When dealing with a pendulum, use the gentle dodge technique. For example, if your boss stresses you out by assigning extra work with strict demands, don't argue or resist. Listen carefully, agree initially, and let the initial surge of energy pass. Then calmly ask for advice on how the work could be done more efficiently. By aligning briefly with your boss's energy without getting emotionally involved, you let the pendulum exhaust itself. In doing so, you remain detached, observing the game instead of becoming a part of it. The pendulum redirects its energy elsewhere, and you avoid unnecessary conflict while maintaining control of the situation. In the wise and famous words from the martial artist Bruce Lee, "Be like water making its way through the cracks. Do not be assertive, but adjust to the object and you shall find a way around or through it. If nothing within you stays rigid, outward things will disclose themselves."